I stopped forwarding my wife's mother the flight tracking link I've quietly set up twice a year. The same week my wife told her sisters I don't do anything for this family. My mother-in-law stood at arrivals alone for 2 hours, so I need to back up a little because this sounds worse than it is. Or maybe it sounds exactly as bad as it is. I honestly don't know anymore. My mother-in-law Diane is 68 and she travels alone twice a year to visit us from Phoenix. My wife Karen usually handles the logistics, but 3 years ago Karen started this thing where she'd forget to check the flight status, then panic at the last minute, and one time Diane actually stood at baggage claim for almost 45 minutes because her flight had landed early and nobody knew. She called the house phone 4 times. Karen's phone was on silent. I was the one who drove to the airport and found Diane sitting on her little rolling suitcase looking completely defeated. After that, I just quietly set up a flight tracker on my phone. I linked it to Diane's airline account with her permission. She doesn't use the app herself, says it gives her anxiety, and twice a year, every spring and fall visit, I get the notifications. Gate changes, delays, early arrivals, all of it. And I just forward the link to a group text so everyone had it. Nobody ever asked where it was coming from. I don't think Karen even noticed it was from me. She just screenshot it and send updates to her sisters like she was running operations. It worked fine for 3 years. Then in October, Karen and I had a bad few weeks. Her sister Bethany was visiting and they got into this whole thing about holiday planning and who does what for the family, and Karen got upset and said some stuff that I heard from the hallway. She didn't know I was home. She told Bethany that she handles everything, that I don't show up for this family, that she's basically a single parent when it comes to anything involving her side. Bethany was agreeing, making these little sympathy noises. Karen said, he doesn't do anything. I mean nothing. I'm exhausted. I stood there for a minute and then I went back to my car and drove around for about an hour. We didn't talk about it directly. Karen doesn't know I heard. I just came back and made dinner and we moved on like we do. But I kept thinking about that flight tracker sitting on my phone, the one I've been running for 3 years without a single mention, and I made a decision. Diane's fall visit was 3 weeks later. November, first week. I got the notification that her flight had landed. I watched the tracker update. Gate confirmed, baggage carousel 4. I put my phone face down on the desk and kept working. Karen texted me around 4 p.m. Did you see where mom's flight is? I said, no, sorry, been in meetings. She said she'd check the airline website and I said, sounds good. What I didn't know, and this part I genuinely didn't plan, is that the airline website was showing delayed status because of some update glitch, even though the flight had already landed. So Karen thought the flight was running 40 minutes behind and didn't leave for the airport until almost 5:30. Diane had actually landed at 4:10. She waited at baggage claim for a while, then went outside to the arrivals curb, and then, because nobody came and her phone battery died from calling, she found a bench inside and just sat there. Karen walked into the airport at 5:55, 2 hours and 40-something minutes after Diane touched down, and found her mother sitting with her suitcase between her knees, talking to an airport chaplain who had asked if she needed help. I heard all of this when they got home. Diane was calm about it in that way she has where you can tell she's been crying, but she's not gonna say so. Karen was apologizing in circles, saying the website showed the wrong thing, that there must have been a glitch. Diane said, it's fine, honey. These things happen. Karen came and found me in the kitchen later that night after Diane was in bed. She said, did you know her flight had landed? You usually track that stuff. I looked up and said, I thought you had it handled. She stared at me for a second. What does that mean? Nothing, I said. I just figured you had it. She said, I didn't know you were tracking it. Why didn't you say something? I don't know. I didn't think to. She went quiet. I watched her figure it out. Not all of it, but enough. She said, how long have you been doing that? I said, doing what? She stood there in the kitchen doorway not saying anything for a long time. 3 years. I finally said, since the time she waited at baggage claim. Karen didn't say anything else that night. She went to check on Diane. She hasn't told her sisters about the tracker.